ABSers, John Erickson here. Some changes. We've gone from the advanced ball striking site and forum, which started in 2009. And basically, to make a long story short, the technologies that be obsoleted the site. There's absolutely nothing we could do about it. It was written in a language called PHP-BB and not supported on modern browsers and social medias and that sort of thing. So, that being said, the solution is to change the formula. So, we've got an incredible amount of content over there, and we're going to be slowly moving that over to this platform, Instagram, which I've never been on. You probably wonder why I've never been on Instagram, because over on ABS, pretty busy over there, and I really didn't have the time or the energy to be dealing with multiple social media platforms. I did have I think there's still a YouTube channel with some stuff that I'd put up there, but most of it, I always like to have everything in-house. I like to have my own content, to be managing it, and not have the limitations that would be imposed upon me by, it can only be 60 seconds, or it can only be 15 seconds, or it can only be this or that, or it can only be so many size, gigabytes, megabytes, that sort of thing. But anyway, I have to adapt. I know that. I'm stubborn. I don't like to adapt to these things. As you can see, I'm pretty stubborn with the. Yeah, I'm still hitting persimmon. No, I am, for good reasons. Anyway, that's the update. Looking positive going ahead. The ABS program, the module program, all that content is going to be on a new site called Thinkific, like terrific, but Thinkific, I think, thinkific.com. From what I understand, it's the top teaching site for all sorts of things, from cooking to making things, ceramics, anything you want to teach, yoga, or whatever. There's a great platform for that, and advanced ball striking will be now joining that, which is great. So we'll have what I think to be the best golf instruction in the world. I don't have any reason to believe that we're not doing that. So anyway, I just wanted to give an update on that, and what's been going on recently is I've really, over the years, I've had to think about where this is all going and with teaching. And, while there's a lot of ways to swing a golf club and a lot of ways to take it back, and you see all kinds of different swings and different releases and this sort of thing, I think eventually, you come to the point where the top of the mountain was really Ben Hogan. I mean, you have the greatest shot maker, arguably the greatest player. I mean, even if you look at major championships, he only played the British Open once. The PGA, I don't think he played only a couple of times, so he's only playing 2 majors. His percentage of wins, I think, is better than Tiger's as far as the number of events that he entered and the amount of wins of major championships. I mean, that should be an important statistic. People say he didn't putt that well or whatever, but the bottom line is we have a lot of swing footage. We don't have a lot of him playing golf like we would other players. We have the Shells match. People have seen that. Hits every green. Just kind of stiffs it on every hole. We probably didn't hit it like that every day. Had a good day, I'm sure. But I think it shows possibilities. I mean, that was a very long golf course, over 7,000 yards. Long courses when I was playing on tour in the persimmon era, 6,800. That was long. That was a U.S. Open major championship kind of length. So 69, 68. Pebble Beach, Riviera. Those were all, out here in the West. Olympic Club. Those were all under 7,000 yards. So that the courses are a lot longer now, and the ball goes farther. Equipment. That's a whole other conversation. But getting back on point to Ben Hogan. You have something that is very unique, and I think the players that were exposed to him at the time would all kind of agree that that was kind of the guy. People would go over and watch him. People were influenced by him. He had George Knudsen was a big follower. I think it worked a little bit with him on some things. Great ball striker Ken Venturi, was a Hogan. They were very good friends, but these guys didn't really quite swing like Ben Hogan. You see elements of that. Another question about Hogan's books. The Power Golf book in I think the 40s, late 40s maybe, and of course his 5 Fundamentals, 5 Lessons book. I've read those over and over and over and looked through there, and it's a lot of good information, a lot of great stuff in there. But I feel like it fails in the sense that nobody really swung like Ben Hogan, So if you had those books and you studied them, I don't think that leads to Hogan's swing. My opinion, my professional opinion, is that the book was written more generally for the average golfer to look at, grip stance and posture and some basic things, and get people pointed in the right direction. Other people would say it's all there in the book and it's kind of cryptic, and you gotta, if you look at this and this could mean this, and maybe this is that. I don't think there's any ill intentions there, but at the same time, I would question if Hogan was going to give away his, I don't want to say secrets, maybe secrets, Hogan's secret. There can't be one secret, because if you do one thing, it affects something else. So we can go with 2 secrets, maybe. There had to be 2 things that were, but he was very competitive, I think, and he's not going to give away his ultimate kind of secrets. We'll just use that word. I don't think he's given that away to anybody, especially during his playing time. He's still competitive, still on the tour. He's not going to go out there and tip his hand to his competitors and say, this is what I'm doing. No, I don't think so. So that being said, I don't feel like Hogan instruction is available. I mean, I've looked at a lot of stuff. I've, just like anybody else, I've watched people on YouTube, whether it's professionals or amateurs, thinking they've found something. I don't think there's anything complete. I don't think anybody's even come close to understanding it. Why would that be? Well, it's hard to say. Nowadays, the kind of swings that people are pursuing are quite different. The gear is quite different. The clubs are quite different. The golf ball is quite different. The courses are very different. So the objective of what Hogan was having to deal with at the time, I would say the courses back then, the classic tracks tended to be much narrower. The greens were much smaller. Certainly in the major championships, the rough was much higher than what we're seeing now. I mean, I posted the picture of Hogan on the Olympic Club when he foot slipped and he hit it in the left rough, and the grass is like this long over there, and he's just wedging it out. That was kind of before my era. I played in, 3 U.S. amateurs where they were, had thick rough, and I remember playing North Shore in 1983, and you had to hit it in the fairway. If you hit it in the rough, you're just wedging out. You weren't getting it on the green. If you're par 4, you hit it in the rough, you're not putting it on the green for your second shot. You would just wedge it out, or maybe get an 8 iron on it or something, get it up short of the green and pitch on and try and make your par. That's how it worked. It was a penalty. I would say it was maybe a half a shot penalty, maybe a little bit more than that. Probably not a full shot, because you would get up and down sometimes and make your par, but it wasn't easy. So given that, getting back to Hogan, I would say that his objective would be accuracy, to hit it as straight as possible. And when you're dealing with small greens, then if you want to be on the green, you have to be very accurate. You've got to be hitting that ball not only on the green, but in the correct part of the green. So when the green is smaller, and you want to get it into the green zone, which is, let's just say it's general. If the pin is in somewhere in the middle of the green, you want to be in the bottom right quadrant. I'll talk about all this later, because I think there's been a lot of golf swings that aren't designed to position the ball there. But that's another conversation. So if you're trying to create a golf swing that is going to hit laser shots, accurate, eliminate the left side, so you expand your error. I mean, if you're off by, let's say if a fairway is, let's just say it's 40 yards wide, if you're aiming down the middle, you've got 20 yards on each side of error. If you go beyond that, you're in the rough. Now, if you aim down the left side, now you got 40 yards of error. If you set up your swing and your gear so that you can't hook the ball, you just can't, then you could draw the ball maybe. I mean, hooking it meaning with a normal swing, yeah, you can close the club and do, certainly you need to hit it around a tree. That's a different thing. We're just talking about your normal golf swing that you're going to use doesn't hook the ball. Then you can safely aim down the left side of the fairway, and if you hit it dead straight, you're in the left side of the fairway. If you cut it a little bit, you're down the left center a little bit more, you're in the center. You hit a bad shot, you're over in the right side, but you're not over there out, way in the rough or anything. So these are all the kind of things when it comes to playing and shot making, and I'll talk more about the pie chart of the greens, and that you would have the short right of the pins would give you uphill right to left putt. Long and left, you're going to be downhill left to right putts. Call that the red zone. You don't really want to be there very often. Short right, we could call that the blue zone. I mean, you got an uphill putt, you're okay. And then the long and right, you're going to have a downhill right to left putt, which is probably better than you would have with a downhill left to right putt. I'm talking for right-handed golfers. If you're left-handed, then you just flip that around. But this is real reality stuff. I know Lee Trevino spoke about this, and he felt like he could beat Jack Nicklaus because with the short irons, he was going to be down in the green zone, short right. His miss, I'm not talking about all the time, because you have a front right pin placement, and you have to play away from that sometimes, right? But generally speaking, greens are sloped from the height from front to back, higher in the back and lower in the front, so that it'll accept the shots trajectory-wise. So Hogan was obviously aware of this, and would set up his game and his swing and his gear to work in unison to master that objective. So if you then set up your swing, then there's certain things that you would do, and you also want to hit it far and have power as well. So if you start looking at Hogan's swing from that angle, I think it's easier to get an understanding of what he was doing, rather than just saying that's a swing and he was in this position and that position. It's like, why? Why is he here? Why is he there? What's going on? I think to a certain extent it helps to be a good player, maybe a pro level champion player. You start understanding the finer points of the game, strategy, that sort of thing. The Balata golf balls of the past were high spinning balls. They really spun a lot more than the modern balls, which to a novice or beginner golfer doesn't sound good because the ball spins a lot and it just goes offline, and it just goes so far offline. But for a good player that has control of the golf ball, then you would actually welcome the spin. So in the era that I grew up playing, I think we played some of the spinniest balls. Titleist, Dunlop were making very high spinning balls with a soft rubber Balata rubber cover, with the rubber bands on the inside, and then inside that had about a marble-sized rubber ball that was filled with a liquid. So you had a liquid, this rubber ball, 100 miles of rubber bands, and a balata cover. If that ball came second, like if they came with solid core balls first, and then they did the wound ball, I would say the wound ball, wow, this amazing technology that they've come out with, much more sophisticated than just a solid cored plastic golf ball. Because that that was the old ball, people think, well, that's the old technology and it's not good. But as a good player, I always welcome the spin. You're able to shape the ball more. One of the things that I've noticed occasionally, I watch golf on TV, not really much anymore, but when I see the pro tracer, nowadays the ball goes up. You can curve it up to the apex, but then it tends to fall straight down, and you see that's curving up, and then it sort of falls down, or this way, and it falls down straight. When I was playing the high spinning ball, we could curve the ball to the apex, and it still had enough spin that it would still be curving on the way down, and it would hit into the green and actually kick this way. So if I was cutting a shot and it would come in like this, and it would hit the green and spin to the right, or if I was drawing it, it would go up to the apex, and then it would come down, and it was still moving sideways, and it would hit. So if we had a front left pin placement, we could hit it to the center towards the center of the green. It would come in, and it could kick that way. And if we put a lot of backspin on it, we could actually spin it back into that front placement. So it was really pretty cool, to be able to hit a shot like that. And we would think not just where the ball's landing, but what the ball would do when it hit the green. It would hit the green, and we'd spin it back. Or if we wanted to run the ball in, we could come in with a lower trajectory and curve it a little bit, and it would hit, and we could, with a lower trajectory, we'd hit and release. If we had a back left pin placement, we might hit a kind of a low draw that would sort of hit in the middle of the green and skip in back there. I don't really see that happening now. Golf courses were, to me, even though they were shorter, they were actually longer because of the equipment and combined with the ball. Everybody was hitting 250-yard drives was the average touring pro. So a 450-yard par 4 left you a 200-yard shot, which would back then would be like a 2-iron, maybe a 3-iron, maybe a 4-wood. Long shot in, so the trajectory of the ball coming in was a lower trajectory. So when it's coming into a smaller green and a lower, it was very long irons were the hardest things to hit off the fairway, and you're coming in maybe 3 or 4 times around. You're going to have a long iron off the fairway and sometimes into a small green. So you really had to be precise about that shot. So that's different now. The par 5s were 3-shot holes. You took 3 shots to get to the green. Once in a while, somebody would be on a par 5 and 2, but it wasn't the norm. If somebody was doing that, it was usually a 3-wood in. Once in a while, the long hitter would hit one out there and come in with a long iron in there. So the game has changed. So in that sense, with 250-yard drives, generally speaking, you'd occasionally hit one 270 or something. There'd be some guy that could hit one 300 once in a while, but with the high spinning ball, it was very hard to keep a 300-yard drive anywhere near the fairway consistently. So the long hitters would kind of get punished because the farther that they hit it, the more it would tend to get offline, and with the high spinning ball. So that's why you would see a lot of short hitters winning tournaments. You'd see guys hitting 230 that would be just in the fairway all week, and they could win tournaments. And the long hitters that you'd think would have an advantage would not do as well because they were in the rough and the trees with a high spinning ball. So it kind of allowed the game to be a little more diverse that way. You could have short hitters and long hitters competing on the same tournament. All kinds of body builds. You had tall players, short players, thin players, overweight players. It was kind of nice in that way. It kind of gave a little bit of gave everybody a chance. Just a quick story. I played with Corey Pavin, who won the U.S. Open, but he was an incredible college player, and we played in college quite a bit. I think my freshman year he won 7 college tournaments and was Collegiate Player of the Year, and just dominated. I mean, absolutely dominated. And he could not hit the ball more than 230 yards. I mean, I absolutely could not hit it more than 230. There would be par 4s that he couldn't reach in 2. I mean, he couldn't even reach them. Driver and a 3-wood or a 4-wood, and he would position it short of the green. If the pin was back left, he would position it short right of the green, so he'd have an easy chip. And he was so good with his short game that it was just he'd just get up and down. 90% of the time. It's just no big deal. He was as accurate with a 4-wood as a lot of guys. He was more accurate with a 4-wood than a lot of guys were with a 5-iron. I'd never seen anybody control the golf ball that well. I remember playing with him in a college tournament where he shot at the Stanford tournament. And he shot 66 on that golf course, hitting it 230 yards off the tee. I mean, it was just incredible to watch him play golf that way. Incredibly accurate, great wedge player, great putter, great short game, and a great driver of the ball. I mean, it doesn't sound good, 230, well, it's short, but I don't think in the 2 days that I played with him, I don't remember him. I don't think he missed a fairway. And it wasn't uncommon for him to just not miss fairways. I can't really ever think of him being, I never saw him way out of, hitting it way off in the woods. He couldn't have been as good a player. So, but he came, this would have been, he was developing that all in the 1970s. We were playing college golf this would have been the early 80s, maybe, so 81, 82, I think. So we're still in the persimmon era and playing the Balata golf balls. There was the next day I played with his teammate, our team, Fresno State. We were, playing against UCLA. And I got paired with Duffy Waldorf on his team, who was, at that time, extremely long hitter. And he shot 66 also, hitting the ball, 270, 80 yards, occasionally bombing a 300-yard drive, just overpowering the golf course. So it was really interesting to see those two styles ending up with the same score. A guy hits a 230 and a guy's hitting it 300 sometimes, both shooting 66, two really different styles of play. And I really appreciate that about the classic game. It's beautiful, beautiful thing. So getting back to Hogan again. So it's kind of coming from a different era, different conditions. Another thing that I think should be of note are the condition of the greens. Modern surfaces are immaculate, just beyond anything anyone would have imagined back then. If you watch some of the old Masters footage, you're going to see guys banging the ball on the greens. I mean, hitting it, hitting it hard. The ball just goes and slows down. I think they'd have the highlight reels sometimes in the Masters. You could go watch what it was like in the 60s. And we all know the 16th hole on Sunday, and you have the back left pin placement. And now you hit the ball anywhere to the right of the pin, and it just takes the slope and funnels right down to the hole. But back then, if you hit it up there, it wouldn't do that. It would stay because the grass was long. It was almost like putting on the tee boxes. And guys would actually hit a putt down the hill, not just tap it or blow on it if it got stuck up there, but you could actually hit it a little bit. So the greens are much slower, and there were really, when you have the greens much slower, you're affected a lot more by the kind of grass that's on the greens. So when I was growing up, on the west we played bent grass greens mostly, or poana, pebble, and the Monterey a lot of poana grass, but bent was typically, you could cut it really short and it wouldn't die off. The northeast was bent grass, so faster greens, and in the south you'd have Bermuda greens, so they were slower, and the grass had the blade thicker, and the grain would just lay across the green, and if you looked and it was like really dark looking one way, you're looking right into the grain, and if it was shiny, it was down grain. So these are all things you'd have to consider with putting. But even, I imagine they probably still have some Bermuda greens down there because the grass that's what grows best. But if they're cutting it so short, it kind of takes a lot of that out of play. If the grain, when the greens were longer, because the mowers they just weren't as sophisticated. So if you have the grass taller, you have to. There's a skill set there you have to learn. You have to learn how to putt on those kind of greens, especially Bermuda greens. I always struggled on Bermuda greens because I was from California, so I didn't really have experience much with that. I think there were some Bermuda greens down in Palm Springs, but I wasn't playing a lot down there. But again, these are the kind of conditions. So, and the greens are bumpy compared to modern greens, really bumpy. So if you were going to shoot a good round, you had to hit it close. You had to get it in. You can't rely on making 20, 30 foot putts all day long, not on bumpy greens. The other thing too, that this is a real reality thing here. Now in the modern game, if you're a good putter on perfect greens, I mean, you have those days where you just kind of run the table. You're putting a good, you get it online and at the right speed, it's going in. But in the old game, you could hit a perfect putt, but it's bouncing around and it misses. So it does something to your confidence. If you can't make all your putts because the greens are bumpy, people are complaining, oh gosh, there's a spike mark, or hit this or that, or bumpy greens. The good putters are always going to make more putts. I don't care what. They're going to make more putts. But on bad greens, they're not going to make as many. Not as many. So it was a little more of a ball striker's game back then. You had an advantage if you were hitting it in close. I mean, you always have an advantage hitting it close, but more of an advantage hitting it close, because if you could get it inside 10 feet, even a bad putter is going to make some putts. Another thing about bad greens, if I'm putting on bad greens and I miss-hit my putt, let's say it breaks right to left and I just hit it too far to the right, there's a chance it might hit something and kick into the hole. I might still make the putt, but on a good green, once it's offline, it's gone. It's not coming back because the greens are so true and they're so pure. So this is real world stuff, I never considered myself a great putter. I mean, I think that was my downfall. I couldn't putt as well as some of the other guys, but it's a common complaint. A lot of good ball strikers. I would have won this if I could have putt or whatever, but it's kind of true to some degree. You've got a big advantage if you're a good putter. But I know that when I would show up at a course and I would see bad greens, I'm playing up in Canada or somewhere, somebody show up we're playing this tournament here at this course and the greens are really bad. I always liked that personally because I felt like half the field was eliminated because they're going to complain about the greens. I can't putt these lousy greens, I hate this place or whatever. So I knew half the field was out because of that. And I like the fact that the good putters were going to miss putts that week. They don't get to just run the table and make all these putts. I'll just give an example. When I won the Windsor Charity Classic on the Canadian Tour, I missed 4 greens all week. Okay, I hit 18 greens the first day. I hit 17 greens the second. I hit 17 greens the third, and I hit 16 greens the last day. So I only missed 4 greens. I was never under 30 putts in a round, and I shot 17 under. Broke Mo Norman's tournament record. I don't think that happens now. Another thing too, and I'm just saying this for conversation. I'm not trying to, put more feathers in my cap here or whatever. But I think it's important to also note that in that week, for instance, I never hit a par 5 and 2 the whole week. Not once. I never had a 2-putt birdie. So all the birdies that I made, I think I had 24 birdies, something like that. Maybe I had 7 bogeys during the week. All of those 24 birdies were one putted. They were earned. I had to hit it on at one putt. So in the game now, I don't think it's uncommon to see the players maybe hitting all the par 5s and 2 in a tournament. So if on those weeks, I would kind of consider that more like a par 68, because if you're on in 2, especially if you're hitting iron in, if you're hitting irons into the par 4, into a par 5, you're hitting iron for your second shot into a par 5, it's not really a par 5. Not as I would see it, and not as Hogan would see it in that era, right? So again, kind of some differences in the game, and thinking about the kind of swing that he would want to create for himself, or how that swing would develop also. He's a Texan, right? Windy kind of, generally speaking, we get wind out in California too, but I played Texas quite a bit, and some of the nastiest winds down there in Texas, especially out there in West Texas. Boy, it can just blow out there. And a lot, the ground, a lot of hard pan, it kind of banging into the ground. Different than if you're in Virginia, for instance, or in the Northeast, and you were growing up there, with more rain and softer turf conditions and that sort of thing. So, and then of course the clubs that would be handed to you in the 1930s or 40s were going to be much flatter lie angles, for sure. If you went into a pro shop and grabbed the clubs, I've got clubs like Persimmon Woods and the Hickory and some of the early steel shafted stuff that's just sitting there at 48 degrees, stock, 48 degrees, flat, okay. Somebody showed me a modern driver, and it was like, I don't know, it's like 60 degrees or something. So you're going to tend to try and adapt to the club that somebody hands you. So I think the clubs are generally flatter. A lot of the earlier clubs didn't have any offset on them. That's going to affect your swing, because the more that there's offset, it delays the closing of the club. The purpose for that offset to help golfers when they come over the top, it delays the closing, so they don't pull the ball as far left. It's a nice little fix for a bad golf swing. It helps, but for a good player, you won't want that, because a good player is coming from more inside, and they're using their torso and rotation to hit it. You want to be rewarded for the closing of the club face that you've done. You don't want to have to overdo it, and that can end up throwing things off. So when I look at the irons that Hogan used, and I I've personally held them, but I've seen enough pictures, I can kind of see he didn't have a lot of offset on the clubs. He didn't design a lot of offset into his clubs when he was making clubs. So again, the equipment, it's a chicken and the egg. Do I swing a certain way and then customize my equipment to my bad swing, or do I use good equipment and then try and work my way into that because of my swinging? So I think there's some of that too. With Hogan, he was probably given clubs that were suitable, that would have led him to swing the way he did to some degree. If somebody hands you a flat club when you're a kid, you're more likely to swing that thing around your body than if it's upright, you're going up here. Someone hands you an upright club, you're going up like this because it's just the way that the shaft sits. It's going to tend to go up. Flat, it's going to tend to work around your body. Hogan is very, people say he's very flat. I don't think he was really flat. I think it looked correct. Another thing to consider, well, are there advantages to that? Is there an advantage to swinging flat clubs, flat Lyangles? And I would say absolutely 100% yes. Big advantage, flat. Hogan was 5'8", I believe. Okay. To the best of the knowledge that I understand, have gathered from various sources, including Mo Norman, who I knew and worked with myself, that Mac O'Grady, no, not Mac O'Grady, I'm sorry, Ben Hogan, 6 degrees flat. Roughly 6 degrees flat. For most people, they look at that as it's kind of disturbing to see something that flat. So, but how would that be an advantage, to come in that flat? Well, you're flattening the plane, okay, then you're going to shallow out the low point. If the club is swinging like this, upright, okay, that low point is, okay. If we're coming in flat, we're really shallowing out that low point. So you have the golf ball here, and you've got a club that's coming in more level, okay, more parallel to the ground. You can better energy transfer than if you're coming at it glancing from steeper, okay. That would be one reason you might want to have flat clubs. Flatter Lyangles are naturally going to send the club more behind your body, so that you then use your torso and your body to rotate and generate power that way. If the club is upright, you're going to tend to get it up and out above your shoulders and then have to reroute it or something, because you're going to have to use your body to get it generate power. One of your power sources is just the rotation of the body. So the other thing too is that with a flat Lyangle, you're less likely to hook the ball, and I'll explain this in more detail too, but what I call the left vector of possibilities. So if here's my target out here, and my golf swing is based upon flatter clubs, it's harder for me to hit the ball left, hard left, than it would be if I had an upright club. Upright club, I can get over it, and I can hit the ball very far left on a bad swing. But with a flat club, I'm not going to be able to hit it as far left. So what you do is you move that left vector of possibility to the right. Okay, so with a flat club, this is as far left as I can hit it. With an upright club, I open up these as possibilities on a bad swing. Okay, Hogan he would have been aware of that. He would have been aware of the left vector of possibilities. The mishit shot with a flatter club is going to tend to be more to the right, which is going to put you in the pie chart I talked about. Going to put you down in the right bottom right quadrant, so you tend to be putting uphill, right to left. So these are critical things for a good player to, as you develop your skill sets in the game and you get better and better, these things start to become more important. These more details. It's not like I'm just trying to hit the ball far, for instance. There's only one shot in golf that you want to hit it far, and that would be with the driver. And given on a par 72 golf course, typical four par fives, right? And then 4 par threes. So we're looking at 10 10 par 4s on the course. The 10 par 4s, some of them may have dog legs. Sometimes you might want to hit an iron off the tee and that sort of thing. So the par 5s, you got 4, and you might want to go all out with the driver there for distance. The par 3s, obviously you don't want to hit it as far as possible because you don't want to be over the green. So the 10 par 4s, you might have a few of those where it's more position oriented. So let's say maybe 3 of those holes, 3 or 4 of those, you may not be trying to hit it as far as possible. You want to position it. So you might be looking at 6. So there might be only 10 times in a round where you're going to be trying to hit the ball as far as possible. So let's just say, a good round of golf is 70. Shoot 70 shots. Only 10 times out of 70 are you trying to hit the ball as far as possible. 10 times. It's not the bulk of the game, hitting it far. But you can have an advantage to some degree on those holes. I mean, if you can get the ball out there another 20 yards or something on a par 5, does that mean I'm going to reach it in 2? Maybe, but it doesn't mean that I can't make birdie from just short. It's not necessarily a whole stroke advantage. You might have a little bit of an advantage, but it's all these little things. It's probabilities and statistics, kind of. How can you put things slightly more in your favor? Being a straight driver of the ball, in the fairway just more often than this other guy. It just over time, it helps out. So the pie chart, keeping the ball kind of down right. The miss is a little short right. It doesn't look like a good shot. Even if you miss the green short right, assuming that there's not a lake on that side, or a big bunker with a huge lip or something. A lot of times there's you're just off the green, short right, and you've got an easy chip. You're chipping up the hill and right to left, which is more natural, to chip. I think most golfers prefer a right to left putt or right to left chip. You kind of body position, you're leaning into the slope and chipping up the hill as compared with left to right. It's always a lot of golfers tend to cut across chips a little bit, so you've got a left to right spin, and if that spin hits the green and it kicks to the right and it starts rolling too far away from you. So it's just little things, these little things that add up over time. A little bit at first, but over the course of time, if you've got a half a stroke advantage statistically over time, it doesn't seem like much. Like, how would you even quantify that? You're watching 2 golfers and say, hey, this guy's got a half a stroke average, he's better than this other guy. I just don't think you could even see it, over any one round. He's better because half a shot, if you lipped out putt, just something. But over the course of a season where you're playing, 100 rounds or something in a season, you're going to beat somebody by 50 shots, with a half a shot advantage. And if you look at the money list and you say, well, if I could take 50 shots off and take them off here and there, maybe 4 shots here and 6 shots in this week or something, and it makes a difference between a lot of top 10 finishes or winning tournaments, for that matter. Having a half a shot advantage can really be a big advantage. So it's really fine-tuning all these things, to just increase the probability of success, and I think Hogan, very analytical, just listening to him talk, about the game, or it could be anything from equipment to, the game in general, his swing, his thought processes, very, articulate, very analytical, paid a lot of attention to detail to gain, these little bits of advantage over his opponents and his contemporaries. So that all being said, I've really given a mouthful this morning here. Going to kick off this new platform, moving advanced ball striking. I'm going to, moving forward, be focusing a little bit more on my thoughts on Hogan and his golf swing. I am going to be working on creating a course and a class that will address some of these things, and because why not try and swing with the basic principles of the greatest striker? I think to discount what he did isn't really good. I don't think that's good teaching. I think in any other sport, you would look at the greatest person, whether in martial arts or whatever, the master. That let's look at that. Let's look at that. I think a lot of people think, well, let's just give up on that. He was like a gymnast, or he had unusual body things with his body that he could do that other people can't. So let's just ignore that. I think it's just misunderstood. I think there are techniques that he applied in his swing that people don't understand. And one thing that I know is that in just about any sport, the greats, they make it look easy, because to them, it is easy. It's easy, And what makes it easy? Well, a lot of hard work, of course, but is that the recipe for success? Hard work? Because I know a lot of people that worked really hard at golf and didn't have success. I remember in college, the most dedicated player we had on our team, he hit 3 times as many golf balls as anybody did. I mean, he was up early, 5 in the morning, out there, crack of dawn before the sun came up, hitting golf balls. He said, well, I can pick them up when the sun comes up. I can see him to pick them up. He did not have success. In fact, I'm not going to mention his name, but I think if he ever watches this, he'll know who he is. Love you, brother. Okay. But, no. So what is success? I think technique is extremely important. So how do we get to those techniques? And that's where I'm, putting a lot of my focus right now. Is anyone ever going to swing exactly like Ben Hogan? You can't swing exactly like anybody else. I mean, to some degree, we're all kind of original DNA and like snowflakes or whatever. But we can take certain principles and that objectively that we could identify and say, yeah, we absolutely know this. Like one thing, for example, we know that Hogan had a great shoulder rotation going back, right? So we could sit there and say, okay, well, what are our limitations? I mean, if I can only turn my shoulders this much, okay, that's it. Where Hogan would be here. Then we could say, okay, can we improve on that? Are there stretches? Are there things that we can do to improve that aspect of it, right? That would just be beneficial. It's just going to be beneficial to do that. So to identify the things, the objective things, that we could say, we definitely know this, we definitely know that. We know he had flat lie angles, we know he had heavy clubs, stiff shafts, blah, blah. We know he had a great shoulder rotation, we know that, definitely see that his head moved down and kind of diagonally. I call a lot of these things vapor trails. Are we looking at the vapor trail? What caused that? The dynamics. I feel like, like swing plane, is a very vapor trail kind of thing. People start trying, if I can just swing on plane, I could just hold the club like this and I could just trace it on a line with a flashlight and try and make sure I'm just on plane. Yep, I'm on plane, 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 and do that. And if you notice that, and my body wasn't even moving, right? So if you're on plane, is that helpful? No, it doesn't mean anything being on plane. when I swing the club, I'm trying to not swing on plane. I'm trying to swing off. I'm trying to move it over here, and then over here, and then over here, then over here. I mean, I'm trying to do all these things that are not on plane, but in the end, I end up very on plane. It's like, oh wow, this is really on plane. But it's not because I'm trying to be on plane. It's because I have a lot of opposing forces. If I do this and then I do this, I have an opposing force here and here. Then it sort of cancels out and it ends up on plane. But it's not because I'm trying to be on plane. I'm trying to be off plane here and off plane here, which ends up being on plane. And another thing about swing plane too, just to talk about this. If I were to, let's just say I don't have it on me, I wish I did, but let's just, if you can visualize this, that if I had a stick with a string and a little rock on it or something, and I'm going to spin that thing around, so it's going to be kind of making an umbrella. It's going to, at first, as a slower speed, it's going to go around my little stick like this, okay, and it's going to be, like that carnival ride, I forget what it is, with that it spins around. But anyway, as I spin this thing around, this thing's going to be down here. Let's say the top of my stick is right here, and this thing's going to be going around here. But as I spin this thing faster and faster, then that's going to start rising up, and if I spin fast enough, it's going to be like a merry-go-round. It's going to be like on a flat plane at the top, just spinning around really quick because of the dynamics. So the dynamics create the plane. That's what's creating the plane. It's not because it's like, oh, well, if I hold this ball and I go like this and I'm not even doing it here, I'm on plane. People go down that wormhole and it's not good. I mean, I would just tell people, just forget about swing plane. Just forget it. Don't try and swing on plane. I'll teach you how to do it. But dynamics create these vapor trails, okay? The vapor trails don't create the dynamics, okay? If I'm spinning this thing around, the faster I go, and this thing starts getting now level and appearing to be on a flat plane, it's because of the dynamics that I'm doing here. It's not because I'm just trying to be on plane. So a lot of the stuff that's going on in the body then creates this. So Hogan's swing, what do we objectively know about his swing for sure? It's quick. He swung the club very, very fast, okay? By design? I think so. So, most people say don't swing fast, right? Conventional golf instruction, swing slow, never rush, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, maybe that works. There's certain kinds of swings. But I would say that with Hogan, very fast for a reason. Fast helps it load a certain way, but fast also, if you're applying opposing forces throughout the swing, fast ends up being really on plane. I mean, you can't be off plane if something's moving really quickly. Something's going around in a circle, it ends up on a plane. Spinning, it ends up flat. It doesn't droop. Okay? So, did Hogan swing on plane? No, he didn't swing on plane. Through the strike, from what we call P3, the parallel before impact, P1 being the first parallel as you take the club back at the top. We'll just say that you take it to parallel 2, parallel 3, before impact, parallel 4, club, parallel, post impact, and then the finish, which I call P vertical 5. So we're not really trying to get the club parallel to finish. We taught me really that vertical, not talking more about that. But getting back to plane, so fast club moving through the strike is going to be on plane. So again, the dynamics creating that head movement. Okay, head movement in the golf swing. Should we keep the head still? Should we try and keep the head still? George Knudsen said the head just goes where it goes. Don't worry about it. Certainly Hogan's swing head moved back a little bit in the backswing. Pretty level. Sometimes just a little bit down. Coming down, it went down and diagonal, and then it comes back up. So it goes this way, goes down like this, and then it comes up. Why is that? Is that because he's trying to do this? He's just saying the rest of his body, well, if my head goes here, then, and then if I push my head down, he's not doing that. The head is attached to his neck, to his shoulders, to torso, and everything, the legs and everything, feet and everything else are doing are causing, the dynamics are causing the head to do that. So that's a vapor trail. The head movement's a vapor trail. Swing plane is a vapor trail. So a lot of people, tend to focus on the result or the vapor trail. The exhaust behind the airplane. That's what you see. So it's good to distinguish sometimes from that. We get lost on that stuff sometimes as well. So, again, I'm going to try and focus on what I think was actually going on. And I think the best way to understand Hogan's golf swing, the great swing, would be to, with a discipline, get inside that swing, Get inside. Now, am I going to swing exactly like that? No. But I'm more likely to have correct insight if I get close. I get inside that and I say, okay, well, maybe I can't turn my shoulders as much as he could, or I have limitations in my flexibility of my left hip joint or whatever. There's certain limitations I might have, but I can get a lot closer than somebody that's swinging upright and coming over the top. So, we know that his hands set a little earlier than I was taught. I was very late, early golf machine student. It was late loading. Hogan, he didn't set it right off the ball. Okay, I see some people doing that. It's a little draggy coming off, but then it sets. Okay, in the P through P1, that first parallel, it's kind of, by the time he'd get his left arm parallel to the ground, that club is 90 degrees already. I don't tend to do that. I tend to be a little bit later of a loader, so I'm going to have to, I've already been exploring that, and I've found out something very interesting about that. That Hogan's backswing, it's not just anything goes. It has to be set. It has to be set early. And I'll be explaining that in the course, why that is. So for me to explain what's going on, I have to make sure that I'm getting that set earlier. There's a reason for it. I'd say it's a secret, but it's a dynamic that there's something happening that needs to happen that way. We know that his left arm was very straight, very, very straight. You get to the top, you take a big shoulder turn, and you have a straight left arm like that. That arm wants to bend. To have that arm straight, there's forces and things that are applied structurally in the body that are going to allow that. Are going to give it that structural rigidity in the left arm. It's not a walk in the park. It's not hanging out at Golden Gate Park with flowers in your hair. You don't get to sip tea and relax and have lunch. It's a position, the top of his swing, that is full of tension. You can't just get up there relaxed. It's not a relaxed thing. And most people would find that problematic, because if you have a lot of tension at the top of your swing, there's a tendency to want to come down quick, which over accelerates the club, and you lose shaft flex. And for those of you who have been around from ABS, advanced ball striking, in the early days, my whole thing has been hold shaft flex. Okay, you gotta, the great players, great hitters, holding that flex of the shaft. When they change direction, that shaft starts flexing. You're gonna hold that flex all the way to impact. Okay. Now that gets confused by modern cameras and the rolling shutter in the cameras that is taking it image by image, like coming down. I don't know, I'm not a camera technician, but from what I understand, the data is collected like from the top down, like like this, okay? And then there are cameras that have a global shutter where it takes the whole image at once, so you get more accurate as to what the shaft's actually doing at high shutter frames. But a lot of us have seen pictures of the shaft bowing the wrong way, and power golf, the shaft's going there. People, this is in the 40s, and people still are confused by that. It's just terrible, to see that. I know I've shot the same swing with two different cameras and then seen at the same time that I'm making one swing with two cameras and I get two different looks to the shaft. So one of them is not accurate, So, you preach these things and then people come at you and they say, well, but look at the shaft's going the wrong, so it's problematic in teaching. For someone like me that's trying to teach holding shaft flex, and then you have a camera that gives the wrong information, but holding shaft flex is very important, a very real thing. And you have to understand that when you're holding shaft flex, when you've got a pressure in the shaft and the shaft is flexing back, you got weight in the head and you're moving. The only way you can hold shaft flex is the hands have to be the grip end has to be moving faster than the club head, so it's like stressing and curving. What that does is my secret. I'm gonna give away the secret. Is that when you hold shaft flex and you have that weight and you're pressing against it, it's all through your body, everything's working to accelerate, it puts more feel in your hands than if you're not holding shaft flex. So the only way to hold shaft flex is to accelerate the club. The club has to be accelerating to do that. As soon as it stops accelerating, then the shaft releases. That doesn't mean that it's losing speed. It's just not accelerating, okay? So I could have a club that's 120 miles an hour right here and 120 miles an hour at impact. But between here and here, there's no acceleration, okay? Now, if I had the club going 105 miles an hour here and 110 miles an hour here at impact, then that club is accelerating. And the club's not going to accelerate on its own. It's not going to just accelerate. Not at those speeds. Now, if I drop something, a golf ball from my hand, it was 9.8 meters per second squared or whatever, acceleration happens, the gravity thing. But when we're talking at those kind of speeds, we're not talking about just something falling there. That's being generated by us, that acceleration. So when we're accelerating the club, we can hold shaft flex, and so the looser the shaft, the more it's going to curve back, the more it's going to open the club face up. The stiffer the shaft, the less you're gonna have that. And sometimes the shafts will be so stiff that you don't really see it, but I can assure you it's there. So a golfer is always going to feel what I was taught as being like a longitudinal acceleration, or acceleration that's moving away from the center, like this way down the shaft. So you feel that pulling this way in your hands. The club, if you let go, the club would go. So there's that acceleration. But what I think the tangible acceleration, the one that's really important, is the one that's moving more tangentially this way, not so much this way, in more of like a buzzsaw, like a radial type of direction this way of the shaft. So we're accelerating. That's what puts the pressure in your hands. That's the lifeblood, okay, of a great player, because now you can really feel the head coming through. Exactly, especially if you got stiff shafts, you know exactly where that club face is at. You just feel exactly where, and you're accelerating. You can just pressure, hits the ball, okay? It was said, the legend, people talk about it, that saw Hogan, multiple people that I've known in my life, when I was younger as a kid, that, when I I was born in 1964, so when I was 10 years old, 1974, and Hogan was retired by then. Some old guy would say, we used to watch Ben Hogan play in the LA Open or whatever, and it sounded different when he hit the golf ball. It was a different sound. It's like, okay, kind of folklore, legend. Sounds like I'm a comic book or something. What is that actually? That different sound? I would say that a golf ball being struck by a club that's a little heavier, the shaft flex is being held. We'd say that's a vapor trail of the acceleration of the body. Okay, but if the shaft flex is being held, okay, if you've got that acceleration, okay, that pressure, when the club hits the ball, it's being hit not by just the weight of the head, but the pressure that's in the shaft. And the pressure in the shaft is also felt in the hands, and it's felt in the arms and the shoulders and the core and the whole body. You feel the whole thing. It's not just releasing the club where the shaft has already been released and you're timing it with a straight shaft, and it's just the head, and you just feel this kind of vibration in the shaft this way as it's hitting the ball. There's a big difference between that and pressuring where that impact comes right into the core of your body. Okay, that's the great stuff there. And would that give a different sound? I think it would give a different sound. I think it would give a different sound. If you had a car going 60 miles an hour and it was just coasting down a hill and it hit a brick wall, it would make a sound, I think if that car were accelerating with a lot of torque and it was going 50 miles an hour just before it hits the wall, and it's going 60 miles an hour as it's hitting the wall, and it's trying to go 70 miles an hour as it's after, that acceleration, that extra force, I'll leave it to the physicists to figure that stuff out, but I think it makes a different sound. So I think it did have a different sound. I think it makes sense that it would. So I think I'm going to wrap this up for today. I thank you all for listening to my spiel this morning, and I'm excited. I feel re-energized about moving some of this knowledge base over from an obsoleted platform to one that I think might be taken care of better moving into the future. There's a lot more at stake with these companies that are running these social media platforms, or things like YouTube or Instagram or whatever else is out there. They've got interest in making sure that people stay on those sites and that their videos are preserved into the future, where the old site that we used, the PHP BB people, I don't think they care. They couldn't care less. And that's where all of our information went down. Now we still have it all. It's all there, backed up on drives and that sort of thing. But people were wondering why. Well, gee, what happened to advanced ball striking? Well, it never really died, but it was like slowly just getting cooked, with that stuff, and to where forum wouldn't even load anymore, and it's like a 2,000-pound elephant sitting in the room, and there was no way to fix it, and nobody would have any solutions, and the web hosting companies are like, well, you don't want to touch that, and the PHP people are like, yeah, well, it's just the way it is. No solution. And that elephant would look at me every day and say, like, are you going to fix the site today? And I'm like, not today. It just got too big. The site went from just starting at nothing, a few photos and videos in 2009, up to a website that was over 50 gigabytes. Huge. Videos. Just pictures alone, I think, were just in photos were like 4 gigabytes, just photos. It didn't even register on the counter. It was over. That one went to 9,999 when we took inventory on what's in it. We don't even know how many at this point. Over 10,000 just images. These are big, and nobody wanted to deal with that. So now we're just gonna move it into something that hopefully will be a little more protected this time, with these bigger sites that have a little more interest. So anyway, that's it. I'm gonna just go have some lunch, I think. There's my wife right now coming out the door, and we'll see you soon. Perfect